Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're taking a deep dive into, well, an absolutely fascinating source. It's quite challenging, frankly.
It really is. We're looking at a transcript, right? From a YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. Titled Informe do Comando Ashtar, Actualización da Situación Planetaria Oriente Medio from the Sementes das Estrelas channel.
And it's presented as a message from the Ashtar Command.
Which is described as this, like, benevolent intergalactic fleet delivered through a channeler named Neva.
So it's definitely an alternative spiritual take on things, very different from, the usual news cycle, especially regarding the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission today, our goal, is to sort of pull out the key ideas here. What does this Ashtar Command believe is happening behind the scenes? What are the implications for us, for humanity?
Yeah, it's not just about ground level stuff. It's painted as this much bigger unseen struggle, like for the planet itself.
And here's where it gets really interesting right off the bat. The source tackles that common fear, that the current events in the Middle East could spark a new world war.
But they say, point blank, that's not going to happen.
No. They claim the opposite, actually. That the dynamics created by, quote, those who still try to maintain dominion of the planet, well, those dynamics are decaying.
Right, that their power, their influence over people is fading, diminishing fast.
And trying to cook up narratives for a new world war. They call that a failed tactic.
Failed, why? Because of the level of light the planet has reached. That's the phrase they use, implying people just aren't buying into those triggers anymore.
Not like they used to, anyway. And they explain how these vain narratives work. It's a process.
First, create a common enemy. Get public opinion on side.
Then stir it up even more. Ferment it is the word they use. Divide opinion into two camps, two opposing fronts.
Create separations.
Yeah.
It suggests our global consciousness is kind of waking up to these old divide and conquer games.
What's also striking is how they frame the morality of it, stirring up war, hatred, among people who are apparently part of the same monad.
Which sounds like a shared spiritual source or collective soul group.
Exactly. They call doing that cruel. But, they add, the perpetrators are on their last gasps. These old games are ending.
And it's not just about now, is it? They connect this current situation way, way back.
Millions of years back. They talk about an old rescue involving these same peoples linked to conflicts in the Lyra and Capella star systems before they even came to Earth.
So it implies these aren't new tensions, but echoes of, well, really ancient cosmic dramas playing out again. These populations carry that lineage, that energy.
Deep, long-standing patterns.
Okay, so connecting that history to now, the Ashtar Command claims that despite all the chaos we see, these entities called Aldebaranos.
Another allied galactic group in this narrative.
Right. They're actively working in the Middle East region. Doing what? Keeping certain portals closed. Energetic gateways, presumably.
Portals that the Dark Ones are trying to use to get out, to escape.
Which begs the question, why are they so desperate to escape?
Well, the source says they're fomenting conflict precisely to create chaos, agitation, hoping that turmoil will let them circumvent the system created by our Aldebaran friends.
Break through those closed portals, retake control, and maybe escape, though the source is pretty clear that won't happen.
And it's not just localized, there's a global distraction tactic too, these Dark Ones from the etheric plane.
The non-physical dimension?
They're trying to create other portals using explosions, as they call a very old tactic used in Atlantis, apparently, near the end.
But the Ashtar Command says, we are advancing. Their fleets are building bases around the world, getting ready to support new leadership. So it's shifting from just blocking escape to actively intervening.
So how does this unseen battle actually, show up? They mention the Valley of Mayo, which seems like a clear reference to Megiddo or Armageddon.
Right, keeping that Armageddon narrative alive. And while that confusion is stirred up there, the Dark Ones are apparently profiting from fear, global fear.
They're described as literally starving for any support from the dark forces outside Earth, and they get energy, sustenance, just by grabbing your attention. It's like a psychic parasite feeding on fear.
Or quite a visual.
And the source sums it up pretty bluntly.
This whole situation is more business than anything else.
A cruel business, where people are just pawns treated with no respect.
So what is the programmed agenda behind it all, according to the source? What are they trying to achieve?
Okay, they list 5 things. 1, unleash more fear. Obvious enough.
2, get energetic support from people by training them into certain reactions, like fear, anger, division.
3, make money. 4, control. And 5, maintain the current system, the status quo of power.
And they call out the arms industry specifically, don't they? Oh yeah, thriving on war. Selling missiles, these aid packages that just fuel more conflict. Funded often by populations scared into giving approval via their governments, their congresses.
Then comes this really provocative claim, maybe the most challenging one in the whole text.
The idea that in many wars, the two sides of the fight were friends.
United against a common enemy.
The people.
Yeah. Accusing each other on camera, but behind the scenes. Shaking hands, mocking everyone who believes the charade, and mocking those whose fear actually funds the whole thing.
It's called a cruel reality. But they add, the exposure time is coming. The time of exposure of their deeds is approaching.
Okay, so given this pretty intense picture, what's the advice? The guidance from the Ashtar Command.
It's very direct. It's crucial for you, the listener, to maintain yourselves in the neutrality of peace.
What does neutrality of peace actually look like in practice, though?
It means sending loving energy, but not putting your power, your energetic investment into this or that side. Don't choose a side in the conflict narrative.
Because the conflict feeds on that energy from both sides.
Exactly. By not aligning, you starve the conflict itself. You withdraw your consent, your fuel.
They think people will be shocked, maybe even revolt, when these alleged hidden alliances come out.
Mm-hmm. And they claim that when people on Earth, these friends of Earth, unite in fraternal love, refuse the separation tactics.
Then the Dark Ones will totally lose control.
And they say this is already happening now, which is why we, the Ashtar Command, have been able to get closer recently, because you chose to leave prison. Humanity chose freedom.
Interesting. What about our leaders then? Current world leaders.
Ah, yeah. The source is very clear on this. No leader currently in your world will be ahead of the new organizations that will lead Earth to its transformation. None of them.
So political parties defending this leader or that leader, it's all just old distractions, hindering progress.
That's the message. The compass for the new era isn't politics as usual. It's fraternity, empathy, and unconditional love, regardless of political or religious belief.
And anyone outside those basic criteria, they won't have prominence going forward.
Right, and there's a stark warning, too. If people stay caught up in the chaos, the distractions.
They're basically wrapping themselves up like gifts given to the dark forces. That's a powerful image.
It is. And these arrogant ones, the controllers, apparently brag in their nefarious meetings. They say, we do nothing. They give themselves to us by free choice. And they laugh about it.
Which puts the focus right back on personal power, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Not giving your power to the dark ones will undermine their source, cut off their energy supply.
And meanwhile, these Aldebranos are apparently busy contacting people, especially in conflict zones.
Yeah, working behind the scenes to cultivate peace, help people understand these old cycles are ending.
But they also warn about leaders who seem good, but just want you to take their side against another. Don't be fooled, they say.
The advice is consistent. Stay in your inner peace. Dive into your souls to perceive what's really going on between the lines.
The Ashtar Command themselves. They say they're watching, respecting free will, but getting ready to definitively present themselves, when called. That when called seems important.
It does. And the Aldebaranos have supposedly been delivering messages from high galactic command to some current world leaders.
Telling them what?
Time to step down, make way, because the new leaders are already here, behind the scenes, waiting to implement the real changes.
And many allies, which they imply includes listeners like you, will be contacted in the coming years.
Yeah, to receive instructions, become active participants in these Ashtar Command dynamics. Might even involve being put in difficult, opposing environments to anchor that light of fraternity.
Wow. So direct messages, a physical agent, that could be unsettling.
They acknowledge that and say you might have to renounce many things to join in, but always free will is respected, no coercion.
And current leaders will keep leaving because their energy just doesn't fit anymore.
That's the claim. And that many souls from other times are returning now in new bodies to pick up their work.
Okay, let's talk concrete changes. What might we actually see happening in the world, according to this?
Well, they announced something specific. Soon, you'll start receiving news of cascading problems with your satellites.
Cascading problems.
Yeah.
And the elites, the current powers, will have explanations ready. Right?
Oh, yeah. At least two narratives. Maybe it's solar activity.
Plausible deniability.
Or an enemy nation did it. More reason for war.
Or
ET invaders are destroying our satellites, trying to turn people against us, meaning the Ashtar Command and similar groups.
Okay, so those are the cover stories. But the truth, they claim, the one they probably won't tell you,
Is that we, the Ashtar Command, will deactivate many spy satellites, grid satellites, and bomb satellites.
taking out surveillance control systems and weapons platforms in orbit. That would cause some agitation.
They admit that. Some agitation, but nothing that cannot be harmonically contained. They say, remain calm.
And a message for those who might label them a national security risk.
Their bank accounts might suddenly be zeroed, their support networks unreachable. A direct warning to the elites.
They don't mince words. They tell these elites their arrogance constantly exposes you, and the foul smell emanating from your auras acts like a beacon for them.
Wow. And all the harm done, they will have to bear it in the galactic tribunal. So cosmic justice is invoked.
So with all that happening, how does this end? How does it resolve, despite how things look now?
Crucially, they insist there will not be an escalation into a full global conflict. That's off the table.
Instead, we'll see something else.
We'll realize that suddenly, from 1 hour to the next, a peace agreement will occur. An unexpected peace.
And that sudden peace is the signal. The proof that the old controllers are no longer in control as they think they are.
Exactly, because they used to start and stop wars whenever they wanted, making deals amongst themselves. That was their game.
But not anymore.
Not anymore. The source claims the voice that makes them tremble has reached them through our allies on the surface. A clear message was delivered.
What message?
Basically, you cannot continue with this anymore. They are coming and will not allow you to go further.
They are coming, meaning the Ashtar Command and their allies?
Seems so. The Ashtar Command states, "We are here and we will expose them to all peoples. You will see this in the next weeks." That's a very specific time frame mentioned.
Next week's. Okay. So wrapping this up, what's the immediate takeaway?
Well, the old powers concentrate their darkness in the Valley of Megiddo, trying to play out that Armageddon script. The Creator's light will show the truth that was hidden. Exposure is key.
And for you, the listener, the message is consistent, isn't it?
Absolutely. Maintain your peace and your loving neutrality. Don't feed the conflict machine with your energy, your power.
Stay serene, emit love, let that wave of peace reach everyone.
That's the core instruction.
Okay. Well, this deep dive has certainly offered a, let's say, unique and definitely challenging view on world events, an invisible war for consciousness, cosmic forces, hidden agendas. It's a lot to take in.
It really is a completely different framework for understanding things.
It leaves us with a pretty compelling thought to consider, doesn't it? If peace, this kind of loving neutrality, is genuinely a choice you can make, just by withdrawing your energetic support from conflict, what could happen? What shifts could we see in the world if enough people actually embrace that profound, unconditional neutrality, something to really mull over